Let me start Foreign Minister Iwaya's regular press conference. The floor is yours, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to report on 2 points. First of all, visit by Prime Minister Ishiba to the United States and my accompanying the Prime Minister. As you know, from the 6th to the 8th, I accompanied the Prime Minister to the United States, and I was present for the summit meetings. We had frank exchanges of views, and through this, we were able to build a relationship of trust, a personal relationship of trust between the two leaders, and we were able to strongly demonstrate the unwavering solidarity of the U.S.-Japan alliance. Based on the outcome this time, along with my counterpart, Secretary of State Rubio, and other members of the Trump administration, we want to bring the Japan-U.S. alliance to new heights and toward the realization of FOIP. We want to, on a broad level, further deepen collaboration and cooperation. The other point is the Munich Security Conference and the G7 Foreign Ministers meeting, which I will be attending. If circumstances allow, from the 14th to the 16th of February, I will visit Munich in Germany and intend to attend the Munich Security Conference. At this conference, I will participate in the session which has a theme of security in Europe and Asia. And I would like to communicate our diplomacy and security policies which are proceeding with under the National Security Strategy. Furthermore, I'd like to seize on this opportunity so that we will have a meeting with the G7 foreign ministers. The international situation is fluctuating wildly, and it's a point where the G7 solidarity is extremely important. So we want to confirm the collaboration with the counterparts in the G7 countries on this occasion once again. That is all from me.
If you have a question, please raise your hand. When invited, move to the nearest microphone. Give us your name and affiliation. Kyodo Sakaguchi-san, please. Kyodo Sakaguchi. At the outset, Prime Minister Ishiba's visit to the United States was the very first top leaders meeting, and together with President Trump. The Prime Minister has talked about some feeling of building the relationship based on trust. Minister Iwai, what kind of exchanges actually contribute to such relationship with trust? Another question. When there's a small group meeting, before President Trump joined, my impression was that the Minister Iwaya, you were trying to have some kind of icebreaker to the extent possible. Would you like to share that conversation with us? At the very outset, I was there participating from the small group meeting until the joint press conference. I was there throughout the bilateral meetings. The top leaders' relationship based on trust has been built. That's what I observed. Until we got there, whether there would be good chemistry or not, that kind of a discussion or the talks were there. But yes, there was good chemistry. That's what I felt. Especially in the small group meeting, Prime Minister Ishiba, regarding that then candidate Trump was shot at. There was that shooting accident. And President Trump's motto, "Make America Great Again." That's probably the compassion for those people who have been forgotten. He himself is from a prefecture that has a very small number of population, and those regions of Japan, he wants to revive those regions, and that's why the rejuvenation of those regions, that's what he's been doing. And having listened to that Prime Minister Ishiba's comments, President Trump perhaps felt something. Prime Minister Ishiba's personality, his way of thinking, perhaps was well understood by President. At the time of the press conference, as you know, as far as the Prime Minister thought that from the TV images, thought he was rather scary, but that you do not answer the hypothetical questions. That's the answer that you typically give at the Japanese diet. You remember that those were talks by Prime Minister that was pretty topical, and President Trump did react to those things just through those exchanges. I think the relationship based on trust, I mean, that's not something that can be built in one day. Having said that, the foundation for the relationship based on trust has been built firmly. I was only there just staying there, but let's have a smile on our faces. Let's be cheerful. That's all what I said.
Next question, please. NHK, please. Yonezu from NHK. You talked about the Munich Security Conference and the G7 Foreign Ministers Conference. President Trump is showing his intent to see a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. But then, on the other hand, he's saying Ukraine become a part of Russia one day, and it may not be the case. So it seems as if he's saying he would accept unilateral change of the status quo. And it's been 3 years since Russia invaded Ukraine. And among the G7, how are they making for solidarity? And what is the role Japan should play? President Trump's statements is not something on which I'd like to state my views on for each and every statement. But the G7 Foreign Ministers meeting is such that Ukraine will become an extremely important theme. That is what I think the case will be. It's almost 3 years, fully 3 years, and the international situation is fluctuating wildly, and there is division and confrontation, and unfortunately this is proceeding. So the G7, which share values and principles, must strengthen and maintain cooperation, whether we can do this or not. Well, naturally, we have to do this, but we are being questioned as to whether we can really do this. As for the Munich Security Conference, it's an opportunity where the foreign ministers of respective countries come together, seizing on this opportunity. We are scheduled to have a G7 foreign ministers meeting to fully engage in discussions with regard to the situation in Ukraine. With the counterparts of the G7 countries, we want to have a proper exchange of views and deepen coordination and collaboration. In any case, the important thing is that as soon as possible, there is a just and permanent peace in Ukraine to restore that and to realize that. And I believe that is important. G7 coordination and collaboration in this regard is extremely important, I think. And President Trump, with regard to the restoration of peace in Ukraine, we hope that he would exert leadership. Next question, please.
Yomiuri Uemura-san, please. Yomiuri Uemura. The U.S. President Trump's administration about the USAID, there's so much waste, and there's a movement to abolish USAID. In the past, has Japan been supported by the USAID? If that's the case, what's your reaction? Also, regarding this movement, support for aid for developing countries, I think it's controversial. As the government of Japan, about the importance of extending aid, what's the importance in the government's view? If it's abolished, there is a concern that there might be some vacuum in extending aid. What kind of role does the government of Japan want to assume? Regarding the report you mentioned, I am aware of that. For 90 days, it's been stopped. There's a deepening of confrontations and divisions in the international society as Japan, strengthening our relations with Global South. That's what we want to do. ODA is an important diplomatic tool to that end. That's how we believe. As for Japan, when Japan was hit by natural disasters, we did receive aid from the USAID. So far, between the US and Japan, in addition to bilateral dialogue at G7, G20, the United Nations, and those multi-frameworks, we have been closely collaborating and extending support, including the United States, with various countries. We would like to closely communicate with them, and I intend to, we would like to play a proactive role in development cooperation areas. So that's our line of thinking, and we would like to convey that firmly.
Next question, please. Asahi Shimbun, Satomi-san, please. Satomi from Asahi Shimbun. Also related to President Trump, he has signed a presidential order to impose sanctions on ICC-related people. And ICC has over 70 countries which has criticized these sanctions and issued a joint statement. But why is Japan not taking place? Perhaps some speculate that this was consideration to the United States because it was the same day as the summit meeting between Japan and the United States. Could I have your views on this? With regard to the ICC sanctions and the U.S. sanctions and a joint statement to this effect, the development which led to these negotiations is a diplomatic matter, and so I'd like to refrain from touching on this. Having said that, for the eradication of serious criminal acts and also to make thorough the rule of law. The ICC is the world's first permanent international criminal court. We support the ICC consistently, and the former Supreme Public Prosecutor's Office's prosecutor, Ms. Akane, is director of ICC. So ICC to maintain independence and to secure safety and to be able to conduct its activities thoroughly is important. And it is with great interest that we will be watching the trends of development. The rule of law is a core concept of FOIP. And in the joint statement between Japan and the United States, to maintain the FOIP was confirmed. And we will not condone the attempts to change the status quo by force. This has been included in the statement. So based on this position, we want to closely liaise and engage in dialogue with the United States.
Mainichi Kim-san, please. Mainichi Kim, regarding in relation to ICC, on one hand, rule of law is emphasized as the government of Japan. For instance, signing the condemnation document or statement, the visible communication, I think, is a very important diplomatic activity. So with communication channel, working towards the United States is one way of diplomatic activities, I believe. But as the government of Japan, communication to the external community about those diplomatic activities, what is your thinking? The very first U.S.-Japan top leaders meeting took place. Regarding the biggest purpose, the U.S. is an ally of Japan. First, between the top leaders, build the relationship based on trust, and the U.S.-Japan alliance and FOIP. On those matters, the U.S. and Japan collaborate firmly, so they reaffirm that was the biggest objective of the meeting. It was the foundation of the trust. After building that, and then between the United States and Japan on various issues and matters, we must conduct discussions on where necessary. Sometimes we may have to express our opinion. That could happen. In any case, the world is to have confrontations and divisions, but for the United States to exercise its leadership as an ally, we would like to have close communication with the U.S. and, if necessary, extend support to the United States. That is important. So, regarding the issues, as you have just mentioned, there are many issues between the U.S. and Japan. We would like to have close communication.
Next question, please. Nikkei. Baba from Nikkei. On the Gaza situation, President Trump talked about taking over the Gaza Strip and to own it and to rebuild it and to move Gaza residents to make them immigrate in surrounding nations. What is the Japanese government's take on this? What you pointed out, that is statements by President Trump and various reactions to that is something that I am aware of. On the part of Japan, we are seriously concerned about the continuation of humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip through the steady implementation of the ceasefire agreement to improve the humanitarian situation and toward the de-escalation of the situation. We will be reaching out to the parties concerned, and we will be doing that properly going forward. And in coordination with relevant countries and institutions, we will naturally deal with the imminent humanitarian issues, but in the medium to long term, the restoration and reconstruction support is something that we feel we have to play a positive role in. On the part of Japan, the independent country of Palestine and Israel in the future to coexist together through a two-state solution, and there is no change in our support for this. For a long time, we have built a relationship with trust of the regional countries. So based on that, we want to communicate closely with the United States and other related countries. So the corridor of peace and prosperity and CPAD and our own unique initiatives that we'd like to promote. And so we'd like to continue to make diplomatic efforts for a long-term peace and stability of the region. With regard to the Gaza Strip, within the U.S. government itself, there seems to be diverse opinions, as I understand. So we want to focus on the trends going forward.
Next question, Sankei Harakawa-san, please. Sankei Harakawa, dated February 4th, there was a cabinet decision about Mr. Shimada Yoichi, the lower house parliamentarian. There was the answer to his question in that in the 2013 September, Prime Minister Koizumi visited DPRK right before that. Then Tanaka Hitoshi, the DG, concerning Asia Oceania, there are 2 rounds of negotiations, and there was the lack of that information. So on that information, he asked the question, and then the government came up with an answer. And there's a risk that might actually hamper the consultation between Japan and DPRK, as the MOFA would like to restrain from answering this question. But regarding this lack of the missing of those 2 rounds of negotiations, for instance, March 8th, in the upper house, in the 28th year, Prime Minister gave the answer in this way. 2 rounds of negotiations records, then this is missing. That is true. Yes, there's a missing 2 records concerning 2 rounds of negotiations. Now my question. So in the past, the government, despite the fact the government said that this didn't exist, but this time the MOFA saying MOFA would like to refrain from asking the question. So there has been a change. Then what are the reasons for the changes? Regarding the issues asked, the questions or the gist of questions, in the past, there was a question raised in the question, and then there was a cabinet decision, and the answer document was made. So the answer has been devised along with the answers. As you know, then the Prime Minister Abe and Foreign Minister Kishida, concerning the 2 rounds of Japan DPRK negotiations, they answered that they did recognize there was a missing records. So that recognition is correct. So regarding the answer to the questions, so honestly speaking, I believe that we should respond while paying close attention to the understanding of the person who submitted this. So this was a cabinet decision. It is a very serious matter. And then the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister at the National Diet, regarding the answers in the National Diet, those are heavy things, important things. So when there is those things coexist, this is something that we need to study seriously.
Next question, please. 中国新聞、宮野さん、please. Miyano from Chugoku Shimbun. In relation to the U.S.-Japan summit, I'd like to ask the following. That Japan is working toward a world without nuclear weapons. So what kind of discussions have you had on this topic? And the government is purporting to be proceeding with studies about observer participation in the conference of the parties to the NPNW. Was this subject brought up, and what responses were there, and the reasons? At the most recent Japan-U.S. summit, as you know, initially, at the outset, we had a small group meeting, and we were surrounded by a lot of media. And after that, there was a working lunch. So we had full-scale talks after that. But the time was very limited. And as mentioned at the outset, first and foremost, building a relationship of trust between the leaders and FOIP. And the economy and security, these were issues which we were preoccupied with. So observer participation in the TPNW Parties Conference or on nuclear disarmament, there was no specific exchanges concerning these topics. Through the summit meeting, I believe a relationship of trust was formed. So with that as a foundation, with regard to various challenges that the international community is faced with, at the summit level, of course, but at all levels, we want to have communication and exchanges of views at all levels. But the TPNW and the observer participation in the talks and how we judge that is a subject that the Japanese government should take ownership on and make a decision. On the part of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we're looking at examining the situation with regard to countries that have participated as observers in the past. And during this examination, we want to make an appropriate judgment on the part of the government.
Next, Yomiuri Shimbun, Uemura-san, please. Yomiuri, I'm Uemura. China, around the Senkaku Islands, they removed the boys. The China changed attitude because they had been rather negative about removal. What's the message as the government of Japan? So far, the government of Japan did not remove the boys. You requested China to do so by themselves, and no changes to that policy. What are the reasons why the government of Japan does not remove those boys by yourselves? First, regarding the facts, 2023 July, in the East China Sea's EEZ, boys were recognized, but Japan Coast Guard confirmed that boys are not in Japan's EEZ. Concerning the alarms for navigation, as of February 11th, that alarm has been deleted. The Chinese Foreign Ministry, regarding those boys, completing the work mission in those places concerning those boys, based on the necessity of scientific observation, they conducted voluntary and technological coordination. That was, I understand, their explanation to the external community. As for the background and the history, more than that, I would like to refrain from giving you an answer based on speculation. The setting those boys, in relation to UNCLOS, there is a certain issue. But about the installment of those boys, regarding those countries related to what extent the physical measures can be taken, to what extent, based on the international law, they can be permitted. On the UNCLOS, there's no explicit rules, stipulations, and so far, there has been hasn't been accumulation of such cases. So regarding the response by Japan, if there are such international standards based on international law, of course, we can follow them. But those standards are not clear. And against that backdrop, what we should do, that requires kind of a comprehensive judgment. In any case, as Japan, using all sorts of opportunities concerning other boys to China, we would strongly request the removal of other boys.
Next question, please. China Daily, Jan-san, please.
Hi, I'm a reporter from China Daily. My question is, China lodged solemn representations with Japan on Monday over the negative China-related moves made by the Japanese side during recent talks between Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba and U.S. President Trump in Washington, as well as in the Japan-U.S. Joint Leaders Statement. China expressed serious concerns, strong dissatisfaction over these developments. So, Minister Ishiwa, what is your response to this, and how will the Japanese side react? Thank you.
With regard to the summit meeting, both leaders had an exchange of views about various challenges surrounding China and the East China Sea and South China Seas, the use of force or coercion, and all forms of unilateral attempts to change the status quo, we confirmed that we would oppose. And both leaders stressed the importance of the peace and stability of the Taiwan Straits. The security environment surrounding us is very severe and tough. And in light of the magnitude of China's role in the international society, how should the world be, and in what way should Japan and the United States cooperate? In talking about this as a common subject of interest between the two countries, to discuss China is something obvious. It's natural that we should discuss China. Japan comprehensively want to proceed with the relationship with China with regard to comprehensive relationship based on common strategic interests and based on the policy that we will build this relationship. But based on that, we want to proceed with developing relationships between Japan and China. And the relationship of trust we have with the United States is something very important. So with this as a foundation, our diplomacy and security issues have to be thought in this context. On the other hand, to China, it has a responsibility as a major power, so that we want to reach out to them that they will perform this responsibility. A constructive and stable relationship, strategic relationship based on common interests is something that we want to develop further.
Next question, please. Satomi-san from Asahi Newspaper. Thank you. Asahi Shimbun, Satomi. In Hungary, Japanese women passed away. I have a question. To the embassy, there was some kind of consultation according to some information from the victim. So when and what kind of consultation was made? And what about the reasonableness of the response by the embassy? In Hungary, a Japanese woman passed away. That is so regrettable. And I would like to again express my sympathy. Regarding the point you made, in June 2022, Japanese embassy in Hungary, they were consulted from this particular Japanese woman about her relationship with her ex-husband, that she was the victim of domestic violence. She was prompted to talk to the police, so that kind of support has been extended from this Japanese woman. Around the summer of 2024, about the issuance of the passport of a child, they were consulted from the embassy regarding the issuance of the passport for minor from the joint custodian. Her ex-husband's consent is necessary for the issuance of passport. That explanation was given to her, but then there was no obligation for her child's passport. After this accident, the Japanese embassy in Hungary, they have been supporting the bereaved families while being close to the intent of the bereaved families. We would like to extend necessary support and be meticulous in extending support.
TV Asahi, please. Ida-san. Ida from TV Asahi. A related question, if I may. regarding the women, when she consulted with the embassy about the damage, in general terms, from the standpoint of protecting citizens, what is the response, and was that response performed this time? From a Japanese citizen, if there is consultation to the diplomatic offices overseas and about the DV damages, we have been providing the necessary support based on these circumstances and the requests. We explained that it would be best to consult with the police, and we have provided the necessary support. As to official embassies and consulates overseas, protection of the Japanese is of foremost importance in terms of duty. And as much as possible, we want to be detailed in our responses, and we want to provide the necessary support. And I would like to issue a message to this effect once again.
Radio France, Nishimura-san. Nishimura, Radio France. President Trump's statement, I have a question. With power and intimidation, their attempt to change the status quo, that's not allowed. The government of Japan emphasized that to China. Still, the Gaza, Greenland, Canada, and Ukraine, the U.S. president has been very coercive in his statements. The government of Japan, at least in front of the mass media, never criticized President Trump's statements. The U.S. is a strong ally. That's difficult to criticize what they do. If that's the case, I think the situation is pretty scary. For 4 years, will you be keeping that kind of approach? How are you going to strike the balance, including being critical of against the United States? Can you really say what you have in your mind to the United States? Regarding President Trump's various statements, as you rightly said, he made many different statements concerning each and every one of them. At this stage, giving definitive evaluation is something that I would like to refrain from doing, because the situation is pretty fluid. Where will it going to settle? We have to be observant. We have to discern things through dialogues at various levels. We would like to communicate what needs to be conveyed to them. It's a very important alliance relationship, but various options are available. Japan is a sovereign state. Generally speaking, sovereignty and territorial integrity, respect for those, and the UN Charter principles are important. That is our thinking. And maintaining and strengthening free and open international order based on the rule of law is something that we consider most important. So based on that, with the United States, we would like to closely communicate with them.
So we'd like to conclude the conference at this point. Thank you very much.
どうもありがとうございました。